Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining today's Resideo webinar session, where we are going to be talking about Universal Parts Strategy and Source Preview. My name is Carla Lopez, and I'm part of the Resideo training team. And on behalf of all of us, I'd like to welcome you to our training session today. Before we get started with our presentation, I'm going to cover just a few administrative items. You can find information on our webinar sessions posted to our website at www.resideo.com/webinars. You can find information on upcoming webinars by searching underneath that discipline tab of either HVAC or plumbing on the left-hand side of the search bar. And then you may notice that we're offering webinars on HVAC and plumbing topics each week. So be sure to register and attend each of those upcoming sessions we have. Additionally, you can also find recorded sessions on the same website by selecting On Demand on the right-hand side of these filters. And then for our contractors joining us for today's live session, if you're interested in earning one NATE continuing education credit, there are just a few things to note. If you provided your NATE ID on your registration form, we submit those details to NATE for your attendance of today's live session, and we won't need any additional information from you at this time. If you did not provide us with your NATE ID on that registration form for this webinar, and you'd like to receive credit for attending our live session, we do ask that you email your first name, your last name, your NATE ID number, and the date of the session you attended to homes.university@resideo.com within 1 week from today. This information is submitted to NATE 1 week following the close of each live session. Any requests sent outside of 1 week from our live training sessions cannot be processed. And as a reminder, we can only process requests for NATE credits when you attend the live webinar sessions, and we're unable to process requests for watching a recorded version of these sessions. And if you'd like more information about the NATE program, please visit their website at www.natex.org. And then one quick note before we begin our technical overview today, all of our attendees are muted. However, if at any point during the technical overview, you'd like to ask a question, please go ahead and use that Q&A feature that is found in your Zoom webinar controls. We are reserving the last few minutes of our time together today to answer any of our questions that you might have. So as we progress through this technical overview today, make sure to ask those questions in that Q&A feature so that we can address those at the end of today's session. And for today's training, we have a special guest. His name is Dylan Moss Morgan, who is one of our product support specialists. He will be sharing his knowledge today on Universal Parts Strategy and Source Preview. So with that said, let's get straight into the content.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dylan Moss Morgan. I started at Honeywell in 1998 through the Alarms Division in the Security Monitoring Center in Minneapolis, Minnesota. From there, I transferred over to the Thermostats Division, from there to the Commercial Components Support Division, and then back as a product support specialist for legacy controls for Honeywell and now Resideo, which means I specialize in thermostats, zoning controls, gas valves, ignition modules, and stuff like that, as well as anything that was made before the turn of the century, pretty much. Today, we're going to go over quite a few of our universal parts as sort of a high-level overview of what we offer and how they might help you fit into jobs and why they should probably be on your truck. So without that, we're going to cover the universal parts, the types of ignition, universal gas valves, difference between intermittent pilot versus direct burner ignition, touch a little bit on the glow flies and the smart valves, as well as a new cross-reference tool that you can use to help make crosses in the field easier for yourselves. We, of course, offer gas valves, ignition controls, pilot burners, thermocouples and thermopiles, HSI igniters, integrated gas controls, electronic fan controls, the old school fan and limit controls, AQUASTATs, oil burners, water heater controls, water leaks, and relays, contactors, and transformers. We're going to be talking mostly about standing pilot valves and thermocouples as they apply to them, electronic ignition gas valves, the VR series, S8610U's 3009 is a universal intermittent pilot control, as well as the Y. Typically speaking, if you see a Y at the beginning of one of our parts, it's going to be some kind of multi-pack. The Y8610U 6006 is our latest offering in that. Comes with an S8610U, a gas valve, as well as some wiring and an igniter to help convert pretty much any standing pilot into an intermittent pilot. We're going to touch on our smart valves, the SV95 series, the sister to the S8610U, the S8910U 3000, our furnace control, universal furnace control, the S9200U 1000, the Q3200U 2002 Glowfly, the ST90-120U 1011, universal electronic furnace timer, universal hot water heater gas valves. We're going to talk a little bit about the trade versions that we have available for you to purchase or to swap out if an OEM warranty has expired, and SB7100U defrost boards, as well as a little bit about our universal pilot burners. Many of you are already familiar with the universal integrated furnace control, the S9200U, the universal electronic fan timer, the ST9120, and relatively new offering, the universal heat pump defrost control, the DB7100U. What is the S9200U 1000? It provides electronic control of heating, cooling functions of a single HVAC system, including control of combustion fan and circulator. When we launched it, it replaced over 140 OEM boards. I believe that is now over 200 OEM boards. So it's a great one-stop shop for replacing any integrated furnace control. The first 5 or 6 pages of the manual have all the different crosses it handles. It will manage your call for heat, handles the ignition process, has dedicated IAQ operation output terminals for your electronic air cleaner and humidifier terminals. The electronic air cleaner terminals only power up when the fan is on, and the humidifier terminals only power up when the heat is on. A call for heat has been made. Monitors safety parameters, hooks through your rollout switches and such, high limits. It will shut down your furnace when a call for heat is satisfied. It will also manage calls for cool, energizes the cooling contactor. You can set up a circulating fan cool on delay, and it will go ahead and shut down the air conditioning when a call for cool is satisfied. And it's just one part number for over 200 crosses, S9200U 1000. The universal electronic fan timer, the ST90-120U 1011. Universal electronic fan timer integrates all combustion blower and circulating fan operations for a gas warm air appliance. We do see these typically paired with smart valves or an S90-9010U universal HSI. There's also wiring instructions for the S8610U in there as well. This universal platform replaces all existing Honeywell Resideo SKUs, the ST9120s, the ST9101s, the ST9141s, and the ST9160s, as well as at least 40 OEM fan timers. One part number, ST9120U 1011. Heat pump defrost control. What is the DB7110U 1000? It's a universal heat pump defrost board, controls the defrost cycle of a single stage application, can be timed or demand defrost, reduces form factor, fits in pretty much any heat pump without the need to relocate the internal components, has some LED diagnostics to simplify the configuration and to give some diagnostic capacity when you're troubleshooting a call, quiet mode, and all year long required to make your season, replaces over 260 single stage heat pump defrost controls. We made it a little smaller so that it'll fit in just about anything. We went ahead and added the multiple screw points to make sure that it can fit in to replace just about anything you could find in the field. So the smaller footprint allows it a lot of versatility, and the multiple mounting configurations allow it expanded capacity in that as well. AC won't work if the defrost board isn't running. So if a customer calls you and you know they have one and the AC won't come on, gives you somewhere to go right away. And again, replaces 260 OEM and competitive controls. Heating specifications for universal controls. As everyone is probably aware, standing pilot. Pilot is lit all the time. Self-generates millivolt power to operate the gas valve and sometimes the thermostat, depending on the millivolt, if it's just a standard thermocouple or if it's the thermopile. Intermittent pilot. The pilot is lit only when there is a need to light the main burner, continues to be on through the call for heat, and then turns off at the end of the call for heat. And direct ignition. There is no pilot used. You directly light the main burner either through spark or some form of hot surface ignition. We have a variety of standing pilots offering still, the VR8300 family, the VR8200 family, with the VR8300 family being considered universal. Under intermittent pilots, we have the VR8304 and the VR8204. Direct burner ignition, the VR8305, as well as the VR8205 and the VR8215, with the universal being the VR8345. It comes with a little clever plug that you can put in it to make it either a direct burner or an intermittent pilot. And millivoltage, we do still have an offering in the VS8020 family. Universal gas valve applications. We offer standard, slow, and two-stage in the VR8345 family. The M4406 is the standard, the K804809 is the slow, and the Q4563 is the two-stage opening. Dual versus single valves. Modern valves, dual valves, will have a safety shutoff, a solenoid valve, and a servo outlet, making it a dual valve. And we have single-seated valves, typically only found in millivolt at this point, where you only have a safety shutoff and then just a servo valve for the main burner. The last designation after the family type tells you the opening and temperature rating. The standard, the slow, and the two-stage are all rated at -40, M being standard, K being slow, and Q being two-stage. Here's a breakdown of the gas valve nomenclature that we use. V stands for valve, VR stands for dual-seated valve, VS is for millivoltage valve, and SV is for smart valve. The next digit tells you the voltage of the valve, 4 for line voltage and 8 for low voltage. The next digit is the size of the valve, the capacity. Typically speaking, the shortest answer is the larger the number, the larger the capacity for BTUs. The next two digits tell you the ignition type. It's a standing pilot, an intermittent pilot, a direct ignition, or a universal, which means it can be used for both intermittent pilot or direct ignition. And then the letter after that whole clump tells you the opening characteristics. It's a standard, a step, a slow, if it's convertible, or if it's two-stage. And the last 4 digits, as I always call it, are dealer's choice for the engineers. They get to assign those digits and they follow whatever schematic they do. So I tell technicians when they call in, having them is fantastic for a complete cross, but not for a complete understanding of the valve. Flame detection for gas systems in the old days of standing pilots, this is all thermocouple, thermopile. Occasionally you would see a bimetal coil or a mercury pilot, but it was some kind of thermal sensing. Modern, of course, uses flame rectification for the pilot and for the main burner. Universal Intermittent Pilot Module. What is the S8610U3009? Provides electronic control of intermittent pilot ignition systems used in gas-fired furnaces, boilers, and other heat applications. And additionally, when purchased as the Y kit, is a recontrol that will take almost any standing pilot to a intermittent pilot by replacing the gas valve, the wiring harnesses, the igniter, pull out the thermocouple, put in the correct igniter, and a spark wire. It's quite simply the brains of an ignition system. Takes a call for heat directly from the thermostat. It starts the spark for ignition, at which point it should open the pilot valve. Rectification is used to prove if the pilot is lit. If the pilot is indeed lit, it will stop the spark, open the main burner, and the call for heat begins. At the end of a call for heat, everything shuts down. We do still include a damper plug for applications that still have a combustion damper on them. If you do hook that damper plug to it, it will drive the valve open or drive the damper open on a call for heat. And once the valve or the damper hasn't driven all the way open, then it will start the valve sequence. It's not mentioned on the slide here, but you can see the plus and minus little ports next to the 6-pin Molex. Those are terminal those convenience ports for your meter if you're having to check for flame rectification issues. The universal pilot burners. We now have 4 models that replace over 120 legacy branded standing pilot burners and intermittent pilot burners. They come with a 3-position adjustable hood. All the targeted ones do. Come with a 1/4 inch and 1/8 inch compression fitting and a variety of orifices so they can replace most legacy pilot burners. The box tells you which pilot comes in each box and what parts it comes with. And we have offerings for both standing pilot with a target style adjustable burner, intermittent pilot with again the position hood, but it comes with the necessary parts to prove rectification. We have batwing style burners for 1 inch, and we have again an intermittent style, depending on what's going to fit best in your application. The Q3451. Direct burner ignition is usually handled either through a sparker, which is going to be through a module or an integrated furnace control, or a hot surface, which is going to be a module, integrated furnace control, or in some times directly from the smart valve. The universal hot surface ignition, the S8910U 3000. This is we call it the sister of the S8610U. It's a fantastic control for one-stop shop, replacing almost every hot surface ignition control. Replace over 900 controls. It has a dip switch configuration to configure your warm-up time, your trial for ignition, and your pre-purge. Has little LED diagnostics for troubleshooting. And again, it has ports for reading flame current to determine igniter quality. Universal hot surface igniter. We came out with the GlowFi. It's a robust 120-volt silicon nitride hot surface igniter designed to replace the 120-volt silicon carbide igniters found on dozens of manufacturers' heating equipment. So I use GlowFi. It replaces 110 different igniters. It has a 3-year warranty. It's hot very quickly because it's made of a firmer material. It doesn't shatter quite as easily. We also put 6 different brackets in every box so that you have a better fit when you go to replace a existing igniter. Helps reduce your truck stock. OEM igniters typically have 8 primary ceramic designs. The element doesn't change that much. What changes is how it mounts to the furnace or the brackets that it can use. So in the old day, if you had to do cross-reference, you had to locate the part, read through the list, then you had to take your bracket and either bend or break it to make it fit properly in the furnace. With the GlowFis, you just read the sheet and it tells you which one to use. If you're using the A, B, C, D, E, or F bracket, and just install it. Most technicians never even refer to it. They just use their eyes and pick the right bracket. Universal smart valve family. What is a universal smart valve? It integrates gas control ignition into a single unit for furnaces, boilers, rooftop units, and cooking units and more. Handles both the intermittent pilot and direct ignition. Has a full range of opening characteristics and ignition systems. We sell replacements for all OEM models in our smart valve universal family. We include in the kit, if whenever possible, a LP conversion so that you can change it from natural to LP if needed, as well as 3/4 to 1/2 inch bushings. Complete coverage for all field applications. Trade water heater gas valves. We've made significant strides in our OEM direct sales of water heater gas valves. And as such, we now have a robust offering of trade water heater gas valves. One-piece gas valve and electronic control that measures the water temperature and the pilot. When the water temperature drops below the set point, the gas valve opens, heating the water in the tank. We have 16 SKUs that replace out-of-warranty OEM valves on gas storage tank water heaters for A.O. Smith, Bradford White, and Rheem. Replaces 10 SKUs. The R7284 Universal Electronic Oil Primary. What is an electronic oil primary? It's a line voltage safety rated primary control for residential oil-fired burners used in boilers, forced air furnaces, and water heaters. Works great in both hydronic and forced air systems. The use of the CAD cell flame sensor. It's going to operate your oil burner and optional oil valve. As you can see, it has a little display on there. So it's going to actually have a variety of information available to you, both as diagnostic and as a more intuitive menu to navigate as you're setting it up. It's going to be able to tell you if the igniter has spark detection. It's going to tell you if the CAD cell is running high. It's going to tell you if it thinks the CAD cell needs adjustment or cleaning. If flame is being proven late in a trial, it's going to have a variety of low voltage alarms, error history. It's going to show the last 10 errors, what the error was, how many cycles ago it occurred. It's a pretty comprehensive tool for helping technicians diagnose the application. The Universal Electronic Oil AQUASTAT. Universal service part replacing both Resideo and competitive oil AQUASTATs. I do get asked occasionally on the line if this is only for oil, and the answer always back is that it's 120 volts output for the burner, and typically that's the voltage you associate with oil, not with gas. Can it be used to work in a non-120? Yep, you just have to get relays and or transformers involved to make sure everything's done safely and you don't fry the burner. But it's typically used in oil applications. So safely controls the circulator, the burner, and the boiler for oil-fired hydronic systems. Multifunction LED display provides easy to read set point, temperature, and diagnostic information for quick troubleshoot of complex problems, as well as it's really easy to set up because of that little display. Increased flexibility. You can do vertical, horizontal, or flush mount. It's configurable for single or multifunction use. As you can see on the board there, it's got a couple little holes that you can poke the sensor through so that you can, again, have a little bit of flexibility as to how you're mounting it to the boiler. It does have outdoor reset enabled, which is becoming code for more and more areas that AQUASTATs have some ability to do a setback on warmer days, which also helps pass along savings to the customer. It has a thermal purge to improve the efficiency of the hydronic systems on a call for heat. The boiler circulates usable residual heat into the system before it turns on the boiler. You can default it off, but that's an option you can turn on. You can hook it to an outdoor sensor to do frost protection to protect the boiler from damage caused by freezing water. If the outdoor temperature gets below 40, it'll start to fire the burner to protect the boiler. And you can set it up to pump cycle. This prevents against damage resulting from extended periods of boiler inactivity. If you enable pump cycling every 5 days of no boiler activity, the pump will circulate for 15 seconds to try and help keep that pump from seizing up. So of the parts we've just covered, the S90-200U 1000, the various universal pilot burners, the S8610U 3009, the Glowfly Q3200U, either the 1004 for a single pack or the 2002 for a 6-pack, the S8910U 3000, the ST9120U 1011, the DB7100U, and the R7284U, 11 parts that can replace up to 2,000 plus parts. The cross-reference resource I promised you guys is partsfinder.resideo.com. It works equally well on your mobile or on your computer through a web browser. If you put the part number in, as you start to type it, it's going to start to populate a list beneath it. So it's trying to help you narrow down the parts. So then you can select it off the list. It will bring up the part and will tell you if it has any viable crosses. It's a pretty slick tool built all in-house by the PM team, trying to help point people at the correct crosses. And again, that's partsfinder.resideo.com. All right, that's pretty much what I've got. Like to open up the floor if there's any questions.
Thank you, Dylan. So it looks like we don't have any questions from our attendees today, which I am going to take as a sign that you have answered any and all questions that anyone might have had during your presentation. But if you think of a question after the close of this training, please reach out to your local Resideo sales rep, or you can send an email to homes.university@resideo.com, and we will make sure you get your questions answered. I know sometimes after the close of a webinar, you can think of something a little bit later. Thanks again, Dylan, for sharing your knowledge with all of us. And, we value our relationships with all of you here. Therefore, we want to make sure that you have access to more in-depth trainings that are available on our products inside of our online learning platform. And you can access this online training catalog by visiting the training page on our Resideo Pro website. The first time you access the online training catalog, you'll be asked to create an account, and then going forward, you'll log into your training account to access these trainings. Currently, we've got about 20 online learning modules available, including several modules on our humidification portfolio, the T10 thermostat, and Prestige IEQ thermostat. These online trainings cover everything from technical and installation details, and we also show you how to identify the right customer to sell these products to as well. We're very excited to add this online training catalog to our training offerings for all of you. And if you're interested in more in-depth trainings, we encourage you to sign up for a Resideo Pro portal account to access these trainings. Also, if you're already a Resideo Pro Perks member, you'll receive training credit when you enroll and take these online training courses as well. To find out more information about our upcoming session, please visit www.resideo.com/webinars. And if you search by the HVAC or plumbing tabs, you will find the details for our upcoming sessions. Additionally, we record each of these sessions, and you can find those recordings on the same website by filtering for webinars with the label On Demand. And one last reminder to those contractors who did not include your NATE ID on your registration form and you like credit for today's session, please send an email with your first name, your last name, your NATE ID number, and the date of the session you attended to homes.university@resideo.com within 1 week of today's live webinar to receive credit for attending this live training. And two final things to note before we close out today. Once our training session ends, you will be prompted to complete a survey regarding our webinar session. So please take a few minutes to provide us with your feedback on today's session so that we can improve our webinars in the future. We also use that feedback to help us create future topics, and we'd love to be able to create some training content for you there. So if you have any suggestions or questions, please let us know in that feedback survey. And finally, you will receive an email from us in just a few days that includes some follow-up information on the products that we reviewed today, as well as a link to the website for more information on our trainings as well. So make sure you join us on Tuesday, December 14th at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time for our next training session on top call drivers. So thank you all for joining us for today's Resideo webinar session. Have a great day, everyone.